Hey everybody, it's Party Lead here with what I hope should be a fairly informative video about the Curse of the Vampire Coast DLC coming in for Total War Warhammer 2. With this new DLC, as many of us are already aware, come 4 completely new factions all under the Vampire Coast race, and with them we get 4 new legendary lords, their skill trees, their abilities, their stats. There's a lot to look at with this DLC actually. There's a lot of new stuff, but I'm going to reserve most of it in depth for my review that I'll be doing for the DLC as well. This video is specifically about the legendary lords, and I'll have timestamps in the description down below so you can hop around and see exactly what you want to see. I'm hoping that by going through all the legendary lord information, maybe you guys will know exactly who you want to play as right when you get the DLC, so you don't have to spend time looking around, you can just dive right in. Whatever it might be, I hope it's a little informative. If you have any questions, of course, feel free to ask down below in the comments, and I will try and answer as many as I can. And I would just like to mention that I am sort of doing this live, so to speak. It's unscripted is what I mean. This is the first time I'll be seeing most of this information, and so if you hear any surprise or confusion or curiosity or anger, that's all, you hear that because that's how I feel when I'm reading something. I personally like that. It's almost like we're doing a first look together. I like that. I hope you guys like it as well. Let me know, and I'll change accordingly for future content. The only one I'm familiar with, and that too just a little bit, is Aranessa, because I am doing a Let's Play with Aranessa, and you can check that on the channel as well. There should be either 1 or 2 episodes out already, depending on when this video goes out. Now, with all that said and done, we're going to dive in. Now, one thing that I have checked is that between the Eye of the Vortex and Mortal Empires, it does look like everyone's traits and abilities are mostly the same, so I'm only going to touch on it where it's different. We're going to kick off with looking at the Eye of the Vortex and all 4 of the Vampire Coast characters, if you will. So first things first, no Tyrion, it's not your day. Luthor Harkon is the first one to look at, and with him we're also going to look at the racial attributes of the Vampire Coast, because this, of course, is the same across the board for all 4 of the lords. Now, infamy and loyalty. So destroy, sack, and raid to build a reputation at sea, whilst keeping ambitious commanders loyal and trustworthy by imparting riches and wealth to them. I'm sorry, I love his video. So infamy is actually a core mechanic of the campaign. Basically, every time you win a battle, take a settlement, complete a mission, there's countless ways to gain infamy. And as you gain infamy, you go up this infamy ladder, and as you become infamous enough, you get challenged by these pirate captains to, if you defeat them, you get 1 of 3 verses of the sea shanty that you need to do the main mission. So infamy is a core objective, basically. Loyalty kind of works like how it is for the Skaven. You've got commanders who will be more or less loyal, and you have to manage that, but the twist here, and I find this really interesting, is that some different lords, rather, will have different things that make them more loyal faster or less loyal faster. Some lords will like, you know, raiding, and sending them out raiding will make them loyal faster, whereas others, and I'm making this up, but others will hate raiding, let's say, and if you send them out raiding, then their loyalty will go down faster. Again, making that up, but it's an interesting mechanic, it's an interesting twist on the existing mechanic that we got with the Skaven. Now, pirate coves allow you to gain infamy and leech wealth from unsuspecting settlement owners where these hideouts have been formed. What that means is, when you win a battle for a settlement, as long as it's a coastal or port settlement, not only will you be able to occupy it, or raise it, or sack it, you'll also be able to get a pirate cove. And that leaves the settlement under the control of the current owner, but it installs this upgradable pirate cove that allows you to make money and gain infamy as you go along. That might be suitable for, you know, climates that aren't ideal, for example, so you don't have to deal with public order issues and things like that, and you're still able to get something from having won a battle. So an interesting choice there. And then extra powder over here basically just means that when your missile units have more ammunition, they do more damage. And that's pretty great. It's a nice little mechanic, not as major as something like Pirate Coves or Infamy, but it's a nice way to boost the firepower of the Vampire Coast. Now, again, that's going to be the same across the board for all 4 of them, so I'm not going to repeat these again, hopefully, during this video. Vampire Coast itself, the faction now. The initial challenge is normal. They start with a -30 diplomatic relations with Lizardmen. That makes sense because of Luthor's past, of course, but they also get a leadership of +8 when fighting against the Lizardmen. Luthor himself has a fractured mind. Any one of his myriad different personalities may seize control. I figured we'd see that if we were to hit end turn a couple of times, we'd be able to see what the actual effects are of that. But again, it's tied into the lore and the fact that he had his mind fractured into, you know, countless pieces when he was messing around with Lizardmen trinkets. Then we've got magic resistance of 25% for all units in his own army, and vampiric corruption +3 for the local province, which would be quite helpful in dealing with public order issues. As we know, vampiric corruption is important for public order for the undead, so that'll be nice and helpful. Now, starting units, this is a little interesting for Luthor, actually, because Bloated Corpse, I almost don't count this as a starting unit, because you're going to lose the Bloated Corpse the moment it is used. The Bloated Corpse, and again, this isn't a unit video, but just to exemplify what we're looking at here, or to explain what we're looking at here, the Bloated Corpse is it's like a kamikaze unit. You send it in, and when it makes contact with an enemy, it explodes right away. It goes down both of its abilities here, Gaseous Demise and Noxious Disintegration. It goes down those immediately, and it explodes, and it causes a tremendous amount of damage. It's absolutely ridiculous, but you lose the unit. You don't keep it after the battle, so this is almost unfair, and he actually starts with only 2 units because you'll lose that one pretty quickly. We've got the Deck Droppers over here, airborne ranged units, and then we've got the Mourngulls over here, anti-infantry and armor piercing. And just because we're here, might as well take a look at the armor piercing damage output there. 70. Not bad. Not bad. And they are siege attackers. Cool. So that is Luthor Harkon, and again, in the Mortal Empires campaign, he is pretty much the same, if I'm not mistaken. Let's take a quick look over here. Normal challenge, diplomatic relations, leadership. Yep, all of this is the same. This is all the same as well. Cool. So let's move on to Count Noctilus. So Count Noctilus, again, race attributes are the same, but he leads the Dreadfleet. Initial challenge is easy here. He gains war declaration missions with unique rewards. A pirate crew recruitment capacity of +2, and I should actually touch on that a little bit. Basically, the way this faction works is they have they're a blend of Empire and Horde type factions. So you'll have settlements where you can make buildings and you can recruit units like a full-fledged settlement. You'll also have your legendary lord who has a ship associated with them, which can also build various buildings and recruit various units. And this is basically a buff to the recruitment capacity of that type of recruiting. You can only recruit from settlements when you're in the province. You can only recruit from settlements when you're globally recruit from settlements when you're in certain stances, but the legendary lord will always be able to recruit from the pirate crew of his own ship. However, that ship does not start able to recruit anything, and it uses its own population surplus to build more buildings, and it also has to level up just like a settlement does. So again, think like a Black Ark, basically, except, you know, you can actually make landfall with the crew and actually fight with it and capture settlements with it. So this +2 is just to that recruitment capacity specifically. Moving on, we also have the recruitment duration -1 per turn, or rather -1 turn for the Necrofex Colossus unit, which is nice and helpful, minimum of a 1, of course. And then Lord effects, -20% upkeep cost for Necrofex Colossus units, and then +15% weapon strength for large units. And that obviously compiles, so I can see a 20 stack of Necrofex Colossi with this, with both of these. And then down you can see with the additional starting units, we do have the Depth Guard over here, the regular variant, not the anti-large variant. These are a high-tier infantry unit, so it's nice to see, you know, at least somebody start with them. Our Frenzy as well. And we also have the Necrofex Colossus, which is probably what helps in making the initial challenge easy. Take a look at that. 630 missile damage. Of that, 137 is armor piercing, of course over 10 seconds with missile. And then weapon strength over here as well, 309 is armor piercing up here. And we do have, again, they're also under the effect of extra powder, and you can see just how much of a difference that makes at the beginning of combat. That's insane. Plus, oh my god, that's actually insane. And then we've got the abandoned ship option here as well. So a pretty interesting unit. They can fire while moving too. Not a unit video. I need to keep that in mind. And then there's the zombie pirate gunnery mob. Just a quick note on them. They are the lowest tier ranged unit that the Vampire Coast has access to. So that's Count Noctilus, and he does also in the Mortal Empires campaign, I think, look the same. We've got the same units. We've got the same buffs and effects and everything, so yeah, nothing's changed over there. Let's move back to the Eye of the Vortex here and take a look at Aranessa Saltspite. Again, just a reminder, I do have a campaign going on, a Let's Play. A couple episodes should be out already. Feel free to check that out and drop by to hear my pirate voice, if not anything else. Initial challenge here is easy. She gets more income from raiding, +50%. She has a higher chance of finding treasure maps, +25%. And the way treasure maps work is basically you come across treasure maps, and they will give you a clue, and they will tell you roughly where. They'll give you a radius of where you should go about digging for treasure. And then your lord and your, well, all of your lords, including your legendary lord and your heroes and agents, are all able to actually dig. They can move anywhere on the campaign map, and they can dig, and they can try and find the treasure that this treasure map is alluding to. A pretty cool mechanic, fits the faction. Income from sacking settlements here is also plus 20%. And if we look at Lord effects, we've got characters, aura, leadership effect plus 12, which is pretty big. Weapon strength plus 20%, and melee attack plus 8 for all Sartosan units. And you can see with the additional starting units, we do begin with crabs, with the rotting Prometheans over here, some armor-piercing damage of 55. It's not bad. It's not bad. They are a little lumbering, but they are also siege attackers, which is good to know. And then we've got some deck gunners. They sort of act like pseudo-artillery pieces. Not the greatest range on them, but, you know, it's pretty significant, 245. So they're, again, pseudo-artillery. They're armor-piercing, and they do have the shield breaker trait as well, so quite handy. And that's 37 armor-piercing missile damage per 10 seconds, of course. And over here we do have the Sartosa Free Company. These guys are rowdy, they can vanguard deploy, and they are anti-infantry. And there's the other variant, which is actually a missile unit as well. So that is Aranessa Saltspite here, and I believe in the Mortal Empires campaign, she has a change, actually. Her initial challenge goes up to normal with the Mortal Empires campaign, I guess because there's more happening around her. She has a bit more of a challenge to kick things off. And, you know, she doesn't have any Colossus to help her out. But apart from that, nothing else. Now, the Eye of the Vortex, here we go again with Cylostra Direfin. Sorry, I just wanted to hear her hit that note. She leads the Drowned. Initial challenge is hard. A loyalty plus 2 for new recruits, which will be quite handy. Upkeep negative 20% for Cyrene and Mongol units. And recruitment cost of negative 20% for Cyrene and Mongol units as well. Her Lord effects include physical resistance of 5% for all units in her army, and magical attacks enabled for all units in her army as well. That is ridiculous. That's pretty cool, actually. And then over here, we can see the additional starting units. We've got the Carronade, an actual artillery piece now. Armor-piercing damage of 352 over 10 seconds. And let's not forget, extra powders across the board. So it is pretty ridiculous. And also beginning as a result with the Siege Attacker trait in the Lord's army. We have the Syrenes, who are armor-piercing. They have magical damage in melee. They're physically resistant, quite greatly so. And they have this new thing called Charmed. Or at least I'm 90% sure that Charmed is new. Basically, I guess they're just super beautiful, and they charm the enemy, reducing their melee attack for 10 seconds by 9. Then we've got the Mongols as well. Anti-infantry and armor-piercing. As you can see, armor-piercing of 70, bonus versus infantry of 20. They have the Hunger. They're terrifying, they're fearsome, they are also siege attackers, and they have missile resistance. But again, not a unit video. So pretty good start for Cylostra as well, and let's take a look at the Mortal Empires, just to make sure everything's the same over here. It looks like it is. I mean, this has changed the order for some reason, but apart from that, it is the same. With that done, let's start diving into some of the skill trees. I'll do this all in the Eye of the Vortex campaign, and again, we're going to go in order of reveal. So starting with Luthor himself, we're going to take a look at his skill tree and see what he has to offer on the campaign map. All right, Luthor, the literal mad lad. Look at his animation. I do love the animations. He flips between the different personalities that control his mind and sometimes does a little jig. I mean, at least I think it's a jig. I'm not much of a dancer, so I can't tell dances from lunacy. But we're here to take a look at his skills and his details. So let's dive right in. Let's take a look at the details first. Anything special? He is in fact mad. Yes, that gives him a weapon strength of plus 25%. Gives him a melee attack of plus 15, but it does make him rampage. He's also the Arch Grand Commodore, giving him magic resistance of 25% for all units in his army, leadership of plus 8 when fighting against the Lizardmen, and a vampiric corruption of plus 3 in the local province. So we kind of already saw that. Apart from that, he does begin with Captain Drekla as a follower. So we're not going to see him as a lord, Captain Drekla. He does give melee defense plus 4 for zombie pirate deckhand mobs and zombie pirate gunnery mob units. They are low-tier fodder troops, but that will come in handy early on at least. And apart from that, I say we dive into the skills over here and see what we've got. And there is a lot to see. Some things will probably start repeating between the different lords. But up top here, we've got Slan Gold as the quest item. Gives enemy winds of magic starting amount -10 in the local region. Gives magic resistance of 20%. Adds the ability Slan Gold, which is a Hex of the Winds. Lasts for 55 seconds and it greatly reduces power recharge rates. So really trying to remove magic from the enemy. It's like revenge for not having access to magic himself. And then it also reduces the raise dead cost by 50%, which is quite big. The Death Shriek Terrorgeist is unlocked as a mount as well down over here, making damage poisonous rather than... Oh, that's interesting. When he gets into melee, he causes Disrupted, reducing physical resistance of the enemy and increasing miscast chance. Same goes down here from range as well. And then with the Terrorgeist, from range he can still do it, but in melee he just causes poison damage instead. Interesting. Weapon strength goes down as well, but it does get armor piercing added on. And of course some different changes. We've got regeneration. That will probably mean susceptible to fire damage as well. We get Terrifying. We get magical resistance. And we get the breath attack as well. Then up here we've got Lucky Charm, which is a missile resistance of 15%. Over here we've got Tenacity, which gives us plus 8% hit points. Alright, cool. Fractured Mind gives us the passive ability of Frenzy. And again, Frenzy, as you can see on screen, immunity to Psychology, better melee attack, better charge bonus, and better weapon damage as well. For some reason, I decided to read that from bottom to top. We got Man of War over here. This gives us leadership of plus 8 for zombie, pirate, deckhand, mob, and depth guard units. So that's a low tier unit and a very high tier unit at the same time, all for the Lord's Army. Hero cap plus 1 for vampire fleet captains, and hero recruit rank plus 1 for vampire fleet captains as well across all provinces. Severed from the Winds gives us enemy winds of magic starting amount -10 and magic resistance of 15%. And the hand cannon here gives us explosive bullet ammunition type. Plus 8% missile damage, and then plus 8% missile damage for Zombie Pirate Gunnery Mob and Rotting Prometheans Gunnery Mob units as well. Cool. Moment of Lucidity up here, meanwhile. I guess sometimes he can be clear-minded. It gives him more armor and gives him more melee defense as well. And then finally, at the end here, Pirate King gives him an upkeep cost of -10% for all units in his own army, and the global recruitment cap increase of +1. Cool. Now here we've got the Hunger. We're already familiar with the Hunger, helping replenish hit points of combatants. Next up we've got Supernatural Horror, adding Terror. And over here we've got... So this is actually a waste. If you get the Death Shriek Terrorgeist, then Supernatural Horror is actually a waste. Because you just... Why would you? You wouldn't. Forger over here gives us Public Order -5 for local enemy provinces. Increases income from raiding by 20%, and increases income from all enemy buildings, or rather decreases income from enemy buildings by 5%. I like that. That's very fitting of the faction Forger. Okay, and then next up we've got Smuggler, which gives us campaign movement range of plus 8% and local recruitment capacity of plus 1, just in the local province. And then Poacher over here gives us bonus versus infantry of plus 10. That is horrifying to think about. And it gives recruitment rank plus 2 for zombie pirate gunnery mob. Why are you learning how to hurt humans through poaching? That is terrifying. Arsonist, meanwhile, gives us fire resistance of 15%, missile damage of plus 8% for carronades, mortars, and Queen Bess units. Cool. And over here, I think some of these are common across... I think most of these are common across the different lords, so I won't be repeating myself too much. We've got Monkey Jacket over here, giving us a ward save of 5%, and we've got Swashbuckler, and again, with your glorious feedback for the last time I did this, we're going to take a look at all 3 points here. So we start with plus 3 melee attack, go up to plus 5 melee attack, and then go up to plus 8 melee attack and a 5% missile resistance. With Master Strike, we get weapon strength of 5%, then we get weapon strength of plus 12%, and we get weapon strength of plus 20%. Scarred Veteran gives us hit points of plus 3, plus 8, and then plus 15, and then Hard to Hit gives us melee defense of plus 3, plus 7, and plus 12. Taunt is unlocked next, and that gives us the ability to taunt, which is a hex that targets a single enemy within 100 meters, affecting them with -30 armor, -27 melee defense, and -24% speed. Wow, that's pretty good. So you can basically, if you surprise the enemy with like a good flank, you want to slow them down so you can hit them with something because you have typically slow units. It's not a bad thing to use, Taunt. And again, if you get into melee with an enemy lord or something like that, or you want to slow a unit down from getting away, like some cavalry, you hit them with a Taunt and they kind of get stuck in, I suppose. Interesting to see how that'll be used. We've got, after that, Cutlass over here, which gives us weapon strength of plus 5, plus 12, alongside a bonus versus infantry of plus 5, and then weapon strength of plus 20, alongside a bonus versus infantry of plus 8. Then Blade Shield here gives us melee defense of plus 3, plus 7, and plus 12. Vampiric Leap gives us a charge bonus of plus 6, plus 16, and then plus 30. Wow. On a sorry, I just want to check really quickly. On a Death Shriek Terrorgeist with a charge bonus of 40. Okay, so it becomes 70. Okay, so it's not ridiculous. Not overly ridiculous. Wild-Eyed, meanwhile, gives us melee attack plus 3, plus 6, and then plus 9. And then right at the end here, Hornswoggle gives us the ability Hornswoggle as opposed to Taunt. And that gives us, let's see, 32 seconds is just longer. Yeah, this is 17 seconds, negative 30, negative 27, negative 24. I hate that the order of armor, melee, defense, and speed are different. So yeah, it just lasts for longer. Same range, same effects, lasts for longer, and the cooldown time is longer though as well, 90 seconds as opposed to the 60 seconds of taunt. So there you have it. That's that line over there, and then over here, the red line, we've got Inspiring Presence, Leadership plus 5, held together by screws. That gives us melee defense plus 4 for zombie, pirate, deckhand mobs, and depth guards. Then we've got leadership. Yeah, then we've got leadership plus 4 for the same units, and melee defense plus 6 for the same units. And then we've got leadership plus 8 for those units, and melee defense plus 8 for those units as well. Reanimated Marksman gives us plus 8% ammunition for zombie, pirate, gunnery mob, rotting Promethean gunnery mob, and deck gunner units. Okay. An interesting setup there. The deck gunners are the long-range pseudo-artillery ones I was talking about, and the gunnery mobs are low-tier. Rotting Promethean gunnery mob are, like, higher tier. Then we've got over here missile damage plus 8% and ammunition plus 12% for those same units. And then we've got missile damage plus 12% and ammunition plus 18% for those same units. So that can get pretty impressive. Black Powder Overload, meanwhile, is for your artillery pieces. So 8% ammunition buff there for carronades, mortars, and Queen Bess. Then we get missile damage plus 8 and ammunition plus 12%. And then we get, sorry, plus 8%, I should say. And then missile damage plus 12% and ammunition plus 18%, again, for those very same units, moving down those levels. Rotten Death gives us physical resistance of 3% for Rotting Prometheans, Rotting Leviathans, and Necrofex Colossus units. And that goes up to 6%, alongside a melee defense of plus 4 for the same units, and then up to 10% with a plus 8 of melee defense for those same units. So pretty cool there. And then Flaunting, or Haunting, or Flaunting Horror. That's a very different image than Haunting Horror. I like it, but it's very different. So Haunting Horror gives us missile damage plus 10% for deck droppers, and then melee attack plus 4 for Terrorgeists, Scurvy Dogs, and Sirens. Missile damage plus 15% for deck droppers, and then charge bonus plus 6 for Terrorgeists, Scurvy Dogs, and Sirens. And then it gives us melee attack plus 8 and charge bonus plus 12 for Terrorgeists, Scurvy Dogs, and Sirens, and then missile damage plus 20% for deck dropper units. And then Drowned and Bound, a good name, gives us weapon strength of plus 6% for animated Hulks and Mournguls, and then it gives us plus 9% weapon strength, and plus 4 melee attack for animated Hulks and Mourngul units, and then a speed of plus 6% for Bloated Corpse units, which is quite nice. Bloated Corpses are quite slow, so that's quite nice. And then next up we have a weapon strength of plus 12%, melee attack of plus 8 for animated Hulks and Mournguls, and then we've got a speed of plus 12% for the Bloated Corpse, and then a charge bonus of plus 10 for the Bloated Corpse units as well. Great. And then next, after all that, we've got Avast Ye, which is an augment that lasts for 14 seconds, has a cooldown of 60 seconds, targets self and affects allies in the range within 40 meters, and that's plus 20% weapon damage, plus 8 leadership, and plus 20% armor-piercing damage as well. Not bad at all. Over here, we've got Deadly March. So these ones are only for a certain rank or higher. This gives us missile resistance of 15% for Zombie, Pirate, Deckhand Mob, and Depth Guard. It gives us a melee attack of plus 8 for the same units, and an armor of plus 18 for those same units, as long as they are rank 7 or above, so as long as they're gold chevroned. Then we've got the Ensorcelled Weapons. That gives us, again, as long as they're gold ranked, and in the Lord's Army, they will give us missile damage plus 12%, armor plus 12, and magic resistance of 15% for the Zombie, Pirate, Gunnery Mob, the Rotting Promethean Gunnery Mob, the Deck Gunners, the Carronade, Mortar, and Queen Bess. And then Masterly Splicing gives us leadership of plus 8, melee defense of plus 8, and speed of plus 12%, again, as long as they're gold chevroned, for deck droppers, Scurvy Dogs, Terrorgeists, Animated Hulks, Mournguls, and Sirens. Then we've got Hardened by Death, which gives us weapon strength of plus 12%, melee attack of plus 8, magic resistance of 15%, as long as they're gold chevron for the Rotting Prometheans, Rotting Leviathans, and Necrofex Colossus units. Man, okay, that's interesting. And then we've got all hands hoy, is how I think that's pronounced. It replaces Avast Ye. It has a 90-second cooldown instead. It lasts a little bit longer with a 20-second duration. And apart from that, I believe... Ah, no. Okay, so the leadership here is now plus 16, and then everything else is plus 20% still. The range is the same, but the leadership does get increased. Okay, cool. So there is a difference there. Meanwhile, back here in the blue line, we start here with the campaign movement range buff. Binded to service gives us recruitment cost reduction, -3, -8, -15. Ghost Fleet gives us casualty replenishment of +3, +8, +15. Freebooter gives us post-battle chance of stealing a magic item +5, and income from post-battle loot +9. That goes up to +10 and +12, and then to +15 and +15. Then Sea Dogs over here gives us leadership +4 when fighting at sea, and income from sacking settlements +4%. Goes up to +7 and +8%. Goes up to +10 and +12%. All right? Fighting at sea will happen pretty often over the course of the campaign, I imagine, as you fight the other pirate captains and sea captains. Go on account, then, needs to be unlocked here. We've got recruit rank +1 for all units, and local recruitment capacity for the local province of +1, and then raise dead cost reduction as well by -15%. And that will open this whole section up. We've got Lightning Strike. We all know what Lightning Strike does. To those that don't, actually, because I still see the question often, Lightning Strike basically means that when you go into fight, you can opt to Lightning Strike, which means that no reinforcements will arrive unless it's a settlement battle. In a settlement battle, only your reinforcements will not arrive. The implication is that you're performing a lightning strike, you're attacking as soon as you can, so neither side is able to get reinforcements to arrive on the battlefield. Sorry, I see that question a lot, so I thought I'd cover it right now. A living ship, meanwhile, gives us construction cost of -4% for ship buildings and pirate crew growth rate of +1. That goes up to -7% and +3. And then that goes up to -10% and +5. This could be quite handy if you're planning on, as you should, upgrading your ship a fair bit. And Gambler's Wit over here gives us enemy hero action success chance of -4% and ambush defense success chance of +5% for the Lord's Army. Goes up to -7 and +10, and then -10 and +15. And then combing and preservative. I am not sure what combing is. I'm not going to lie. I don't know what that word means. But combing and preservative gives us upkeep cost -3% for all units in the Lord's Army, up to upkeep cost -8%, and then -15% down the 3 levels. And finally unlocking the Jolly Roger. Oh, it is literally the Jolly Roger. Okay. And this gives us an upkeep reduction of -8% for all units in the Lord's Army, campaign movement range of +5%, hero self-defense of +25%. Oh, +25% of wounding the aggressors. Okay, so it's not just a defense, but of actually hurting the enemy. And then recruit rank of +1 for all units and raise dead cost of -10%. So Jolly Roger plus go on account should give you a +2 recruitment rank for everything. Cool. So that's all of these skills. Is there anything else that we should be looking at over here? We have seen the details. We've seen all this information. Nothing here stands out as new. We can fire while moving. We've got Rampage, we've got extra powder as we've seen. Magical Void here gives us +33% magical resistance, and Power Siphon is a hex that gives reduces vigor for the enemy and increases their ability recharge time. Wow, 4 uses, 60 seconds apart. That's not bad. Well, not 60 seconds, but I guess 90 seconds apart. Okay, that's cool. And then we did take a look at this Disrupted as well. So I believe that covers everything. The only other thing that I can think of that's worth taking a look at is the faction itself. As the captain of the coast, it says faction leader Luthor Harkon. The Awakening is the capital. Captain of the coast. Oh, I love that. I love it so much. So this actually mentions +50 diplomatic relations with a faction of followers of Nagash. That was not mentioned previously. So I'm glad I checked here. And then obedience to the vampires gives us public order up to +10 based on the percentage of vampiric corruption present. Okay, interesting. So vampiric corruption is extra helpful for Luthor. Okay, and then suitable climates here. We've got temperate, wasteland, frozen, ocean, savanna, desert, jungle, and temperate island. Unpleasant is mountains. And then we've got chaotic wasteland and magical forest as not so ideal. Every time he goes to shoot, I feel like pausing. But that is Luthor Harkon. I believe that covers all the bases there. Just a quick note to explain how the shipbuilding all works. Just a quick sidebar over here. The ship itself, again, like a bit of a black ark, it has 10 building slots that you can go in, and you can build structures in here based on your population surplus, and they will allow you to recruit from a completely different section. It will allow you to recruit not only locally and globally, but also from the ship itself in this segment over here, and it acts as local recruitment. So it's as fast as local recruitment would be, and I believe the cost is the same as well. And that covers Luthor Harkon. Let's move on to our next legendary lord, shall we? All right, here we are with Count Noctilus on the campaign map, the Eye of the Vortex campaign map. This is actually a really beautiful little piece of terrain. I do like how it looks. Quite gorgeous, actually. And I just want to mention before we start that if I ever call him Noctilus Prime by mistake, my apologies. Every time I read Noctilus, I think Noctilus Prime. I can't help it. Anyway, let's take a look at the skills that Noctilus comes with, and first let's actually take a look at the character details. Let's try and maintain a format over here, just like we did with Luthor. So let's take a look at the traits here. So Lord of Dread. Okay, we've already seen this. Upkeep reduction and up weapon strength buff for large units. Nothing new here. No starting followers or anything like that. Poor Count Noctilus. Let's take a look at his skills. So this is going to be interesting. A lot of things are going to overlap with Luthor, so I maybe suggest taking a look at Luthor so you have a baseline understanding of what we're looking at, and I will try and point out only what's unique here, but there might be a little bit of overlapping, just a heads up. So, first things first. Captain Roth's Moondial. This is a quest item. It'll give us campaign movement range of plus 10% and campaign line of sight of plus 50%, and it gives us Captain Roth's Moondial, the ability. That is a 3-second augment that will summon a unit of zombie pirate deckhands mob. Again, the lowest tier unit. Can only be used twice, and it's a 120-second cooldown. So it's not super powerful, but that can turn the tide of a battle if push comes to shove, but your army can't be full. So, you know, they can swap out some bloated corpses. They can swap out some bloated corpses. The ones that blow up. Those ones. Blowing up corpses. Necrofex Colossus as a mount, as we are all very aware of, gives us the Necrofex Colossus. What does it actually do? It gives us Siege Attacker, gives us Terror, we can fire while moving, and it gives us the extra gunpowder. Forgetting its name already. Reduces our weapon strength, but that's fine, it's not by too much. It changes our armor, increases our speed and melee attack, and of course it adds the missile damage as well. Okay, cool. I mean, I think that's going to be, without question, Noctilus needs to end up on a Necrofex Colossus, right? Like, right? We've got Lucky Charm, that's a bit of an overlap, 15% missile resistance, and Tenacity as well, plus 8% hit points. Alright, some juicy stuff here, I hope. Master of the Dreadfleet gives us Lord Recruit rank of plus 2, which is quite helpful. Regenerative Hull here gives us casualty replenishment rate for his own army, plus 8%, and local recruitment capacity, plus 1 for the entire local province. Vandal gives us Pirate Crew growth of plus 5 in his own army, income from raiding, plus 8% for his own army, and income from sacking settlements of plus 8% for his own army as well. And we've got the Of the Von Karstein line, because Noctilus was originally Nicholas von Karstein. He was a von Karstein. So that gives him regeneration and allows him to cause terror. So you might still want to double this up with the Necrofex Colossus. You'll get terror, but you also get regeneration. However, that does make you weak to fire damage, of course. That comes with the territory, I suppose. And then we've got Sea Curse over here. Leadership of plus 8 for Depth Guard, Terrorgeist, and Deck Dropper units. And a melee defense of plus 8 for the same units as well. And meanwhile, Invincible Fleet all the way at the end here gives a leadership of plus 5 for the Lord's Army, and attribute of Unbreakable for Noctilus himself. That can be quite helpful, just because your Lord is never going to give up on the fight, and so that leadership drop that happens when they rout is not going to happen. So that can be quite helpful, and he is quite capable in melee as well, so he will be seeing some action. Anti-large and armor piercing of 300, bonus versus large of 20. Jeez. Alright, so Monkey Jacket we've seen, ward save of 5%. Swashbuckler stays the same, I believe. Master Strike as well is the same as Luthor. Scarred Veteran as well looks the same. Heart to Hit looks the same. Then we've got Taunt over here, again, the ability. and that goes up to Cutlass. Again, this looks the same as well. Got Blade Shield, that seems to be the same, buffing melee defense. Vampiric Leap, buffing charge bonus. What's the charge bonus on a Necrofex Colossus? Just 20. Okay, I figured it'd be not too high. I don't see them as charging too quickly. And then we've got the Wild-Eyed melee attack buff. Hornswoggle at the end here, replacing Taunt as the ability that lasts a bit longer, takes longer to recharge. Now over here we've got access to a bunch of spells. Of course we've got Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma, and that does get upgraded as well, of course, to change cooldown and miscast chances and things like that. So that's Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma. We've got the Curse of Undeath available. Okay, more regeneration. So again, a bit more, feeling a bit more like a Von Karstein, I suppose. We've got the Invocation of Nehek available. Of course, that has 2 tiers as well. We've got the Drowned Dead, giving us the Drowned Dead spell, which summons a unit of zombie pirate gunnery mob. You can use that 4 times. That's not bad. It's pretty cheap as well as far as the Winds of Magic cost is concerned. But we'll get into magic in my Lore of the Deep magic video that I'll do afterwards. So we're not going to dive into that here. The Withering is also available, and that, of course, has a 2nd tier as well. Then we go up to Evasion. Following that, we can get Smoke and Mirrors. We can get the Pit of Shades, which is also available alongside the Wind of Death, which is absolutely... That's insanity. Pit of Shades and Wind of Death at the same time on the battlefield. You could wipe, like, not literally half an army out, but that can be quite powerful, having both of those. Then we got Earthling, we got Magical Reserves for the Winds of Magic Power Reserve buff, and Arcane Conduit at the end over here. So that's just the spell tree over there. Nothing really new apart from the Drowned Dead, because that is from the Lore of the Deeps. Nowhere else I can imagine that being from. So that's that. And then if we take a look at this line, we got Inspiring Presence, Held Together by Screws, Reanimated Marksman, Black Powder Overload, Rotten Death, Haunting Horror. This time I read Jaunting Horror, though I do prefer Flaunting Horror. They should have changed the name of this for every one of the Legendary Lords. Like Luthor could have been Jaunting Horror, and completely useless to do that, but why not? Drowned and Bound is also still here, still the same. Avast Ye, still the same. Deadly March, yep. Ensorcelled Weapons, Masterly Splicing, Hardened by Death, and All Hands Hoy. So that's all the same across the board. And then down over here, we can expect more of the same. Campaign Movement Range, Recruitment Cost Reduction, Replenishment Buffing, yeah, more money and magic items. Sea Dogs over here as well go on account as well. We've got Lightning Strike, we've got Living Ship over here. Then we've got Gambler's Wit. So yes, this is the same between these lords. It's good, because that means this video does not need to be 3 hours long. It's already getting quite long. But as I say that, let's dive into the Master of the Bloody Reaver. Let's take a look at the faction itself. Master of the Bloody Reaver gives us... right, the war declaration with unique rewards, and then plus 50 diplomatic relations with the followers of Nagash. Got pirate crew recruitment capacity of +2, and recruitment duration for the Necrofex Colossus, as we know, -1. Obedience to the vampires, again, this helps public order significantly. And climates, we've got, it looks like the same here as well. Everything is good, except for the mountains, and the Chaotic Wasteland, and Magical Forest. How many coast and port cities do these have for placing your pirate coves? Well, nonetheless, that is Count Noctilus and the Dreadfleet. That covers all of his skills, and we can actually, sorry, one thing we should take a look at is take a look at things down here, because he does have this Wraith Storm. It's a bombardment, causes moderate magical damage. It's good against armor, strong versus a single unit. All right, fair enough. 9 seconds. You can use it 3 times, 90-second cooldown. And again, we already looked at this. He's anti-large and armor piercing. Armor of 110, which is quite nice. Decent stats. Decent stats. A lot of anti-large lords. I say a lot, but literally 2 out of 4. 50%. On the topic of other legendary lords, segue to the next one. Aranessa Saltspite, whose name I often almost say as Salt Spire, as if she's just this, like, spire of salt and saltiness. She actually starts at sea over here, though she does also have the settlement of Sartosa as a settlement of her own. I just wanted to point that out because it is so far away from where she actually starts, which is right next to the Shrine of Loic, in the hope of taking the High Elves down by a peg, or perhaps 2. let's take a look at her details. So we have, what do we have here? We've got Queen of the Tides, which gives us character, oh, this is just what we saw in the faction screen, so it's the leadership effect, the weapon strength buff, and the melee attack buff for the Sartosan units. And actually, on that note, I just want to make a quick note of the Sartosan units because they are unique here, so I feel like they're kind of tied into the faction. Basically, as long as you have a Smuggler's Landing, you're able to recruit the Sartosa Free Company, who are the anti-infantry rowdy Vanguard deployable variant, and you can also get the Sartosa Militia, who are the rowdy Vanguard deployable missile variant. So those two are sort of unique to her, and her Sartosan buffs apply to those units. Now, back to her detail screen, nothing else to see over here, no followers or anything, so let's move on to her skills. Here again, we're going to have a lot of overlap, so I do recommend, if you haven't seen Luthor's section, check out Luthor's skill tree section. Timestamps again in the description down below. That will give you all the details, whereas here, we'll try and keep the overlap minimal, and I'll hover over everything, but details only for what is unique. So, Kraken's Bane is the quest item. That is, I believe, her halberd. It gives us a melee attack of plus 10, weapon strength of plus 25%, income from raiding of plus 25% from the Lord's Army, which should stack with her campaign effect. Let me just check here real quick.
I'll be with you soon.
Where would we see that? So we've got, this gives us income from raiding plus 50%, so if that stacks, then that'd be plus 75%. That's huge. That's huge for her army only. That's big. And it also gives us the Kraken's Bane passive ability, which is an area augment that affects, or that begins with herself and affects allies within 40 meters, giving plus 5 to melee attack and plus 8 to bonus versus large. That can be quite handy. And then we've got the Rotting Promethean as a mount. What does that do to us? It gives us a siege attacker, it gives us missile resistance, it gives us fear, and then it also reduces our melee attack, but increases our armor and our speed. Keeps us armor piercing and anti-large though. Armor piercing of 280 and anti-large of 35 in here. Quite impressive. We do have physical resistance as well, 20%, which we seem to lose if we get on top of the Rotting Promethean, so that's good to know. And we also have, just looking at our abilities really quickly, as we're looking here right now, we've got Manon's Luck. That gives us, just for herself, 22% damage resistance and 27% or 27 melee defense buff. So the melee defense buff is huge. That takes her up to 87 melee defense. It's a good counter, I think, good to use against an enemy's spell. And then the plus 22% damage resistance on top of 20% physical resistance to begin with is also absolutely massive. So make sure you're using Manon's Luck if you find yourself in a troubling situation and you want to turn the tide. Meanwhile, over here we've got the Spearfisher's Net, which is a hex that lasts for 18 seconds, reducing melee defense significantly as long as the enemy is on the ground, and it makes it so that they can't move. That's fantastic. That's quite fantastic, because there isn't a lot of anti-large to begin with in her campaign, as I've learned through my Let's Play. So this does come in handy, allowing her to respond to large threats that are coming through, or allowing cavalry to be held in place so you can gun them down from a distance, at least based on how I play. Anyway, I just kind of interrupted myself. We were looking at Kraken's Bane, and then the Rotting Promethean. Lucky Charm is the same, 15% missile resistance, and Tenacity is the same as well, plus 8% hit point. Mutant gives us Perfect Vigor and another plus 8% to hit points. Sawfish Peg Leg gives us armor plus 15 and weapon strength of plus 8%. Creatures of Manon gives us upkeep of negative 10% for all Sartosan, Rotting Promethean, and Rotting Leviathan units, and it also gives us missile resistance of 10% for Rotting Prometheans and Rotting Leviathan units. Gifted Sailor gives us leadership of plus 10 for all Sartosan units, and a campaign movement range of plus 5% and a casualty replenishment rate of plus 8%. Self-Taught Gunner gives us more ammunition by 15% for carronades, mortars, and Queen Bess units, and it gives us the army ability, so it gives us one more use of Norse Roar, Zufbar 42-pounder, and Sartosa Grape Shot. Do tell. Do tell. So what I've seen thus far is, I think if we look at the building browser, we should be able to see. So this is the Zufbar 42-pounder, and that goes up to the Sartosa Grape Shot, and then it goes up to the Norse Roar. So these are all bombardments, and she herself, in her own ship, can also build the the bombards, giving the army ability. So I guess it gives us an extra use of these. We'll have to dive in and see exactly what those do for us. I'll do that in my Let's Play probably pretty soon, actually. But, sorry, back to the skills over here. That is Self-Taught Gunner, and then your Worst Nightmare at the end over here. Ward save of 5%, melee attack of +8, and it gives us increased plunder from encounters at sea. So that 5% ward save will stack on this damage resistance, so that's 27%, and physical resistance of 20%. Pretty good. Pretty good. We've got Forger over here, Smuggler, Poacher, and Arsonist. These are all also with Luthor, as we saw earlier. And then Monkey Jacket, Swashbuckler. Again, this stuff is all with Luthor as well. So if you take a look at his skill tree, or the... Again, check the description for the timestamp. If you take a look at his skill tree, you will see me talking over all of this. But I am hovering over it just so that if you don't want to go back and forth, you're at least able to follow along and see the numbers change and see exactly what happens. So again, Hornswoggle replaces Taunt. It just lasts a little bit longer. It has the same effects, and it has a longer cooldown duration. That's that, and then down over here we've got... Okay, so this should be different because we've got Sartosans to worry about. So Inspiring Presence, held together by Screws. So far, it's the same. Reanimated Marksman, so far it is the same. Black Powder Overload, still the same. Rotten Death, yeah, no, still the same. Haunting Horror is still just for the same units as well. Drowned and Bound, also for the same units still. Avast Ye maintains its similarities with everybody else, it looks like, yep. We've got Deadly March, Ensorcelled Weapons, Masterly Splicing, and Hardened by Death. And then All Hands Hoy, which is also the same. It's a little disappointing that there is nothing that ties into Sartosan-specific units in the red line. I would expect that down there. I guess we have it up here instead because it's unique to her in the yellow line, but it'd be nice to see some in the red line, like maybe Black Powder Overload, or I guess it doesn't really match up because this is all undead. This is all tied to the undead, basically. I mean, the Sartosans are on... Oh, no, these are the actual units that are held together by Screws. Alright, I guess that makes sense, but I do feel like... we're missing out some buffs for those Sartosans in this red line. Anyway, the blue line here will probably be the same. Yep, so far it is. Yep, still the same with the Ghost Fleet. Got the Freebooter over here as well. Sea Dogs as well. Go on account. Lightning Strike. Living Ship. It's all the same. Gambler's Wit. Now, I'm not particularly upset about all this stuff being the same because it always kind of is. The only thing I'm a little surprised by is the fact that there's nothing specific for gold-ranked Sartosans. I feel like that's just a natural... her faction name is Pirates of Sartosa. She's not undead. I would expect the Sartosans to get extra special treatment here, and all we really see is the yellow line up here. Not the end of the world, but just a missed opportunity, I think. Sorry, we kind of went back and forth a lot on hers just because I had some things I wanted to point out. And let's take a look at this. Piratical Ambitions. So that gives us what we're already familiar with, and then Obedience to the Vampires helps as well. And then finally, it looks like all the climates are the same as well. I mean, I guess that makes sense. That makes sense. Chaotic Wasteland and Magical Forest and Mountains are not so ideal. Okay, fair enough. Well, that is Aranessa Saltspite, or Aranessa Saltspire, as I sometimes call her. Her and her Pirates of Sartosa are dealt with, which means we have only one left to talk about. Alright, Cylostra here with her debut in the universe of Warhammer Fantasy. I think it's pretty cool that Creative Assembly were able to come up with a legendary lord entirely from scratch. Kudos to them. I'm sure they enjoyed it. And she was developed by a veteran writer from Warhammer Fantasy, so
Cylostra Direfin.
That's pretty cool. Also, I just realized her name is actually Direfin, I guess, because she's French? Bretonnian, I mean, sorry. So, Direfin, that'll take a lot of time for me to adjust to. Nonetheless, let's not waste any more time. Let's dive into her, and I have noticed that she actually has a character with her. Your damned Paladin hero, Robert Barthélemy. I understand that he's a damned Paladin hero, but it's like, you know, I'm really sick and tired of your damned Paladin hero. It's like complaining about, you know, like a girl's like crap boyfriend. Like, I'm sick and tired of your damned... Anyway, let's take a look at the details over here. Anything special? Siren of the Storm is what gives us the physical resistance, and the magical attacks are good there. And let's just take a look at this right now. Nothing, I am not following a format as much as I'd like to, but let's take a look at this. We've got magical melee attacks, of course. We've got physical resistance of 80%. It's not the number I was expecting, but I am pleased with that number. Resilience over here. This unit is immune to the following types of attrition: horde, infighting. I wasn't aware that there would be infighting. We got fear, we got terror, of course, we've got encourage. All right, all this stuff is pretty standard of fare. We do have, let's see, Tide Call here. So Tide Call is a breath spell that is with the Lore of the Deeps, and it's a decent spell. It's terrible against armor, as you can see. Middling damage, it's magical damage, and it slows the enemy down. So you can use it to slow down cavalry or prevent an enemy from escaping if you so choose. Then we've got, what's this, Spiteful Shot. So Spiteful Shot is another Lore of the Deeps spell. This gives, as you can see, a buff to accuracy, a massive buff to accuracy, and it actually imbues magical damage to ranged units. So if you have that in any army against a physically resistant army, that unit is going to be doing a lot of work. And then we've got the Song of Enthrallment. That is a hex, 22 seconds around self, affecting enemies in range, and wow, that's a huge speed debuff, negative 48%, and a negative 26 to melee attack. Once again, just trying to slow down enemy cavalry or enemy units that are trying to escape, enemy lords, pin them in place, and, you know, pin them down, well, not literally pin them down, but slow them down, try to hold them down, and finish them off. And then over here, we've got the Ghosts of the Past. It's an augment, summons a unit of damned knights errant, and they degrade over time. You can use them twice. And so now we know that they're not like some wind spell or something that comes through. They're an actual unit that'll show up on the battlefield. And that should be quite interesting, actually. That should be quite interesting to see. Let's take a look at her skills now. Again, I imagine there's going to be a lot of overlap. So, again, if you've skipped to here, this will be the first time you've heard it. But take a look at Luthor's skill tree. In the description down below, there's a timestamp, and over there you'll see everything in detail, and over here I'm going to try and avoid any overlaps, or I'm going to minimize any overlaps, though I will hover over things just so you can see it here if you don't want to jump and skip around. Okay. The Bordello Flabellum. I thought this was her fan. It is her fan. That doesn't look like a fan. I guess it opens up like this. Anyway, Public Order +2 for all provinces. Nice. It's always helpful as a vampire. Magic item drop chance plus 40%. Miscast base chance negative 15. Vampiric corruption of plus 5 for the local province. And the passive ability of the Bordello Flabellum, which is an augment of the winds, increasing the power recharge rate. And, oh, speeding up ability recharge as well. Cool. And we've got the Rotting Leviathan as a mount. What does this do for us? It gives us this charge defense, if I'm recognizing my icons correctly, if I'm not mistaken. It does remove a lot of our abilities, though. No way it removes all of these abilities. That wouldn't make sense. I'll check that. But we do have armor increasing to 150, and then also keeping physical resistance. We'll check that shortly after we're done with her skill tree. We get melee attack buff, speed buff, weapon strength buff, melee defense buff as well. Charge bonus gets slowed down or reduced a little bit, though. We got Lucky Charm, Tenacity, we've seen these before. Ghosts of the Past becomes Slaughter in the Deep, which gives us Damned Knights Errant. Still the same. Okay, it upgrades increased melee stats for Damned Knights Errant. Okay, fair enough. And then Watery Graves here, increased entities for Damned Knights Errant. Fair enough. And then Beyond the Realm gives us Knights of the Realm. Okay, cool. Damned Knights of the Realm. And then Sacrilege gives us Damned Questing Knights. Cool. And they're all 2 uses. It's all 120-second cooldown. Right across the board. So here we've got From the Depths. Recruit rank +1 for all units. Raise dead cost negative 10%. Conjuration through Hate gives us Hero Cap +1 for Morngul Haunters. And Hero Recruitment rank +1 for Morngul Haunters across the faction. Then we've got the Fiery Diva here. Cooldown reduction to overcast spells. That's quite hefty. And then Winds of Magic cost -2 for overcast spells as well. That is quite hefty, actually. Got Emerging Terror over here, physical resistance of 10% for Bloated Corpse, Sirens, and Mourngul Haunter units in her own army, and an upkeep of -90% for Bloated Corpse units. I mean, that's fair. Bloated Corpses come and go very, very quickly, so I guess you save money on them for the short while that you'll keep them. And then Siren of the Storm, reducing miscast base chance again and increasing Winds of Magic power reserve by +10. Good stuff. Spiteful Shot over here. So these are the spells. Spiteful Shot, again, extra accuracy and magical damage imbued into ranged fire. Kiss of the Deep here is a hex around self-effects enemy in range. Oh, it's a map wide. Right, okay, got it. Causes damage to combatants. Only when casting, but it's pretty helpful. Depending on how much damage it causes, I'll take a look at the numbers. I can't see all the numbers in detail just yet, but I will take a look at the numbers at some point. Tide Call over here, again, that's the breath spell. It comes in. I guess it does more armor-piercing damage when it's overcast, but otherwise it's an alright spell. It slows the enemy down. You can definitely get some damage done. You can slow an enemy unit down, enemy lord down, and focus down on them. Denizens of the Deep, meanwhile, allows you to summon some Rotting Prometheans. They will, of course, degrade over time. You get 2 uses. 27-second cooldown. Relatively cheap, all things considered. Cool. And then the Fog of the Damned here is an area hex lasting 35 seconds. You can target the ground or the enemy. 30-meter range. Cannot target it flying. And it reduces melee attack and leadership. Okay, and then we've got, well, I want to see this first. That's a much bigger reduction in melee attack. Goes from -26 up to -44, so that is quite big. That is quite big. And then we've got evasion over here, earthing, magical reserves, Kraken's Pull. That sounds cool. It's a vortex spell, of course. Reduces speed by 48%. Is that all you do? Obviously it causes damage. I kind of want to see what this looks like. Come on, give me the cast. What? And if you overcast it, it just lasts for longer. Alright, well, that's pretty sweet. I'm curious to see the numbers on that one. And then we've got Vangeist's Revenge here, which we actually saw in the Cylostra Direfin teaser they tweeted out. You get Shade Wraith coming out, and it's a wind spell, and it causes massive, massive damage. Let's take a look at the details here as well. So, causes massive magical damage, medium forward-moving area of effect, strong versus multiple units, weak versus single combatants. Of course, it's a wind spell. Take a look at it as well. It's pretty amazing. Take a look at that. And it just disappears. And then if you upgrade it, it increases armor-piercing damage. And everything else, I guess, stays the same. All right, cool. And then Arcane Conduit right at the end over here. All right, let's take a look at Inspiring Presence, held together by screws. Yep, Reanimated Marksman. So this is all the same between all 4 of the lords. And again, that's fine for the most part. Where it's disappointing is with Aranessa, because she doesn't have anything unique for her Sartosans. Or a pretty core part of her army. And then down here we've got the Marcher, Binded to Service, Ghost Fleet, Freebooter, Sea Dogs, Go on Account, Lightning Strike, Living Ship, Gambler's Wit, Combing and Preservative, Jolly Roger, right at the end there. And apart from that, so we will take a look at what happens when you get on the Rotting Leviathan in just a second. Let's not forget. First, though, I do want to take a look at the Mistress of the Deep over here and see if there's anything special that we haven't seen. Nope, this is all from the faction selection screen. Obedience to the Vampires as well. And we've got the same climates over here as we have with everybody else, so nothing to see here, kind of. What I do want to take a look at, though, is because it's available, do we look at the Damned Paladin skills? See what they have available, that they can get on a Barded Horse. Lady's Mantle, starts immortal. The Cold Blade for extra melee defense and enabling frostbite attacks. Damned Rage, bonus versus infantry +6. Melee attack +6. Stoic Death, hit points of +8%. Weapon strength of +12%. And Evanesce, a ward save of 20%, which is massive, considering they start with a ward save of 3 and a physical resistance of 75, so that is quite big. Blade Master, Devastating Charge, Full Plate Armor, Art to Hit, Deadly Blade. So these are all familiar with regular characters, or regular heroes. Weapon Strength buffs, Guard Veteran, Hit Point buffs, Indomitable, Leadership buffs, Blade Shield, Melee Defense buffs, and then Deadly Onslaught at the end over here. And then all the way down here we've got Replenish Troops, Spread Public Order, rather, Replenish Troops, sorry, I should hover over all three of these. Spread Public Order, 1, 2, and 3. Assault Garrison, 5, 15, and 30. Assassinate, 3, 8, 15. Assault Units, 3, 8, 15. And Specialist, as we know, that increases success chance and reduces cost. Okay, and then over here we've got, what else have we got? We've got the Ward Save, the Physical Resistance, Resilience, Fear, Terror, that's that. Anti-Large of 12, Armor Piercing of 142, don't know why that's not shown in an icon. We've got Magical Damage Output as well, and of course no armor, but we do have a shield here. Interesting. Alright, well I'm glad I could check out the damn Paladin. I'm glad it starts with one, though technically I shouldn't have included it in this video because it is not a Lord. Now let's take a look at what that Leviathan actually does for Cylostra, being atop her mount, before we call it quits on this video. Alright, so, yeah, it doesn't remove all of her abilities. Does not remove all of her abilities. That bit of the user interface always throws me off. I don't know why it does that on the campaign. But, and just to double check or to reiterate, this is in fact, yes, Expert Charge Defense when you've got her on this giant rotting Leviathan. I find that hilarious that it has Expert Charge Defense, but hey, it is what it is. But that's that. I mean, we've seen all of the abilities and spells and all out of all of these characters. We do, of course, have them all available for use in multiplayer as well. We've got Count Noctilus up here, Cylostra Direfin, sorry, Luthor Harkon, and Aranessa Saltspite. They're all available for use in multiplayer, of course. But I suppose that covers everything I was hoping to cover in this video. I do hope it's been informative. I do hope that you enjoyed the format. As always, let me know down below if you have any feedback for me, if you'd like me to make any changes for the next time I do something like this, and there will be a next time, of course. And also, ask me any questions you might have. I'm more than happy to answer them. I'm always happy to answer questions. I know how it feels when you're curious and you just want to know what's going on, so ask away and I will answer what I can. And I am also preparing a review for this DLC that I hope to have out as soon as possible, hopefully before the DLC actually launches. I want to mention as well, as always, a massive thanks to all of my patrons and channel members who support the channel on a month-to-month basis. I really can't express my appreciation enough. I can't express my gratitude enough. It not only does it help the obvious way, the financial support, but it also helps just as a motivating factor. The fact that you guys enjoy this content so much that you would support me in that way is huge. So thank you very much, and thank you all very much as well for watching. To all of you that haven't already subscribed to this channel, make sure you do. There's a lot of Total War content happening very consistently, and there's a lot of other strategy gaming content happening as well. This channel focuses on strategic gaming overall, but it also has sort of a special place for the Total War games, of course. Right now, Warhammer 2, we're going to cover 3 Kingdoms. There's lots of Total War stuff happening, and we're gonna try and enjoy all of it, and we're going to be as critical as we can as well when we can be. Nonetheless, as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you again next time. Until then, cheers.